I'm almost asleep at the moment. Um, I'm actually probably about to fall asleep. So I just took my medicine about 20 or 30 minutes ago, so it's kicking in. But I wanted to talk about culture. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately because I've been thinking about interracial couples. And the conclusion that I came to was that I think people generally are better in couples when they date within their own race because they're of a similar culture. But the question behind that is, what does culture stem from? And can we really apply culture to race? I don't think we can. I think culture is simply made up of what society says. So if a lot of white people are in a specific group and they say, our society says this and we believe this, then of course the white people are going to associate other white people with comfort because the other white people are the ones agreeing with the statements that they were brought up with. And so people associate as white men, white women with purity or with someone who is relatable and similar because they come from a similar background. But in the modern world, it isn't so simple anymore. You know, even back in the day, we saw cultural barriers being broken down in interracial couples, couples who related with each other because they liked reading books or they liked a specific craft, and these things were different than what the whole of their society believed was good or interesting. And so they connected with the other person not based on race, but based on a similarity of interests and values that were different than what society necessarily deemed as okay. And so, again, as an interracial couple, they got together based on the attraction of culture rather than the attraction of race itself. That's why I don't think race is necessarily important in determining what is a good or bad relationship. I just think that statistically speaking, people tend to want to be with other people in their race because there's a higher probability of that person being similar. But I thought about this a bit more and I applied it to the internet. And one of the amazing things about the internet is that it breaks down this cultural barrier entirely. I think of my friend Kieran, for instance. He's the same age as me, a little bit younger by a few months. We're the same age. We talk quite a lot. We have a lot of the same interests. Our favorite podcasts are the same. Our political views are relatively the same. Um, we make a lot of the same jokes. We can spend 4 hours in a call just riffing on the same jokes over and over again, and it'll be a lot of fun. In fact, the reason why I made that India versus Pakistan Star Wars meme video was literally because I was having a conversation with him and we couldn't stop making jokes about how the world was going to be exploded by nukes. You know, he's the type of guy who I can make jokes about Juan Guaido being spotted outside of a local Greg's, which, if you don't know, Greg's is a grocery chain in the UK, you know, and he'll find it funny. We can just make jokes riffing on British people and talking about how bad British people are, and it's fun. Um, this guy is from Ireland. You would think he would have Irish culture. He would have the Irish mindset. He wouldn't have the American mindset. But Kieran wasn't necessarily raised in Ireland, and I wasn't necessarily raised in America. What I mean by this is that we were both raised on the internet. We had the internet from a very young age, and we consumed it constantly. We read articles, watched YouTube videos. This immediately connects you to the global world. And so culture is no longer defined by insular communities that are, just in these little villages of people gathering together in these specific towns within these specific groups of races. Instead, culture is defined by the insular groups on the internet. And so, because he and I like the same podcasts, we're the same age, and we have the same sense of humor, because of the internet, because of the places on the internet we've gone to, we're going to connect with each other more. This is why I'm able to connect with Brazilians, with people from France, with, as I said, someone from Ireland. Where else? People from the UK, people from totally different states in the United States, people from even the Netherlands, just all over the world. The reason why is because we were raised on the internet. We weren't raised in America. We weren't raised in Europe. We weren't raised in Asia. We weren't raised in South America. We were raised on the internet. So the internet communities we would go to, 4chan, internet communities about politics, or, listening to a specific podcast, memes, the type of Discord server you go to for memes, forums. Specific forums have a specific identity and culture behind them. If you frequent those places from a young age, and you do it all the time the way that I did, your mind isn't going to be morphed by the people around you in real life to the same extent. It's instead going to be morphed by the people who you talk to online, who are also real. They're real people. They're just disconnected in the physical sense, but they are connected nonetheless by heart and by mind. So you can connect with them. You can make a real connection. You can love them and even care about them and learn from them. And you can become more like them as a result of talking to them, as humans inevitably do through enough social interaction. I believe it was a study like the 3 people who you talk to the most, you end up taking on their speaking traits. And the group that you're in tends to inform your views about the world in small ways, sometimes in big ways. And I think because of this psychological underpinning, when I, went online, however many years ago, and I got really obsessed with watching YouTube, these really specific types of YouTubers. I got really obsessed with specific types of comedy, with specific forms on the internet. My mindset, and thus how I thought and felt, changed. I changed. My culture, the paradigm was shifted. I moved over to another side. My culture wasn't about going outside and seeing nothing but trees. My culture was instead about being on the computer all day and then complaining about going outside and seeing nothing but trees. 2 very different sides of the same coin. And so when I talk to these people, when I make friends with these people, when I connect with these people, the connection has nothing to do with race. It has nothing to do with the oceans between us. It has nothing to do with the similarity of language even. It only has to do with culture. And internet culture, my generation's culture on the internet, being connected all the time, is ultimately defined by what communities you're in, the same way it is defined by what communities you're in the physical world. The only difference is that now weirdos, weird people, strange people, people with fringe ideas can all come together and say, our ideas are valid, our ideas are real, let's do something about it, let's talk about it. Before, you would have these very fringe communes that you would find in newsletters, or if you lived in a bigger city, you would meet people trying to start them up. And then people would start their own culture that way. People would connect based on understanding one another's own ideas and beliefs by forming a collective of their own. Or people simply adhered to the collective of the town and society that they lived in. They were the same. On the internet, you're seeing the same thing. The only difference is that the culture is becoming more specific and more connected throughout the world. And so, people are becoming more and more similar as borders are being erased. It just depends on which internet community they're a part of. and how willing they are to dedicate themselves to it.